The vast emptiness of space stretched before the Valari observation post like a dark canvas spotted with distant stars. Officer Nick stood at his station, his four-fingered hands moving gracefully across the control panel. His large silver eyes reflected the glow of the screens as he monitored the quiet sector of space that marked the outer boundary of Valari Federation territory. Another quiet shift, he said to himself, his voice a soft, melodic sound that echoed in the empty room. The peace was broken by a sudden alert. A red light pulsed on his console, accompanied by a gentle chime. Nick straightened, his thin frame tensing as he checked the readings. An unidentified vessel had entered Valari space. "Commander Trell," Nix called through the communication system. "We have an unknown ship at the edge of Sector 7. Within moments, Commander Trell entered the observation room. Unlike Nix, who had the typical slender build of most Valari, Trell was broad-shouldered and tall. His skin had a deeper blue tone, marking him as one who had spent time on the outer colonies. "Show me," Trell ordered, coming to stand beside Nix. The main screen lit up with an image of the unknown vessel. It was unlike anything they had seen before, bulky and angular with none of the smooth curves that characterized Valari ships. Multiple protrusions dotted its hull, which Nix quickly identified as weapon systems. "It's armed," Trell noted, his eyes narrowing. "Heavily." "Yes, Commander, but our scans indicate the technology is primitive by our standards." Trell studied the vessel for a long moment. "Primitive doesn't mean harmless. Run a full scan. I want to know what we're dealing with." Nix nodded and initiated the scan sequence. The Valari Federation had encountered many species in their long history of space exploration. Most were peaceful, or at least reasonable. Some were not. Caution was always wise. The scan began to return data, and Nix frowned at the readings. "That's odd," he muttered. "What is it?" Trell asked, leaning closer to see the screen. "The ship's construction. It doesn't match any known design in our database, and there's something strange about its power systems." The ship was identified in its own markings as the UES Thunderchild. UES, they would later learn, stood for United Earth Ship. As more data flowed in, Nix's confusion grew. He called over several other officers to verify his findings. The room soon filled with the soft murmur of concerned voices. "Commander," said Nix, his voice strained, "you need to see this." Trell looked at the detailed scan results now filling the screen. His expression hardened as he processed what he was seeing. "This can't be right," he said. "Run the scan again." Nix did as ordered, but the results came back the same. The Thunderchild was designed in a way that defied Valari logic. Its systems were built with multiple redundancies, not just 2 backups, which would be reasonable, but 3, 4, sometimes more for critical systems. "What kind of species builds a ship like this?" asked one of the junior officers. "One that expects things to fail," Trell replied grimly. "One that prepares for disaster." Further scans revealed more troubling details. The ship's outer hull was reinforced beyond what seemed necessary for normal space travel. Internal compartments could be sealed off in sections, allowing the ship to function even if large portions were damaged or exposed to vacuum. "The life forms aboard," Nix reported. "They appear to be bipedal, similar to several species we've encountered before, but their biological readings are unusual." The scans showed creatures with remarkable resilience. Their bodies contained systems that could respond rapidly to injury, clotting mechanisms to quickly stop blood loss, and an immune system designed to fight off a wide range of pathogens. But what truly disturbed the Valari scanning team was the ship's weapon systems. Unlike Valari defensive weapons, which were designed primarily to disable rather than destroy, the human weapons showed no such restraint. They were created with one purpose: to inflict maximum damage. Most concerning of all, many of these weapon systems had their own power supplies, separate from the main reactor. They could still function even if the rest of the ship was crippled. "They designed this vessel to keep fighting even when it's dying," Trell said, his voice barely above a whisper. The concept was alien to the Volari, who valued life above all else. Their own ships had excellent defensive capabilities but limited offensive weapons. When faced with certain defeat, Volari protocol was to retreat or surrender to preserve lives. The idea of continuing to fight when all hope was lost seemed not just foolish but barbaric. As the scan continued, they intercepted some internal communications from the ship. The universal translators struggled at first but soon began to make sense of the language. "This is Captain Reynolds to engineering. How are those shield modifications coming along?" "Almost there, Captain. Another hour and we'll have boosted capacity by 30%. "Good work. And the new targeting system?" "Tested and online, sir. Accuracy improved by 25%. The Volari listened in silence. The humans were improving their weapons. Even as they traveled through space, they were preparing for something. A final detailed scan of the ship's database revealed fragments of human history, images of wars, conflicts spanning centuries, technologies developed for the purpose of killing. A species that had fought itself countless times before reaching the stars. Nix's hands trembled as he finished the report. His silver eyes were wide with a mix of fear and disbelief. "Commander," he said, his voice barely steady, "I believe we've encountered a species of warriors." Trell stood silently, watching the human ship on the main screen. It continued on its course, unaware it was being observed. Or perhaps, he thought with a chill, they were aware and simply didn't care. "Alert the High Council," Trell ordered finally. "Tell them we've made first contact with a new species, and we need to proceed with extreme caution." As Nix hurried to relay the message, Trell remained fixed on the image of the Thunderchild. What kind of evolutionary path created beings that built such ships? What kind of history shaped a species to always prepare for the worst? And most importantly, what would these humans do when they discovered they weren't alone in the universe? For the first time in his long career, Commander Trell felt a sensation he barely recognized: fear. Not just for himself or his crew, but for the entire Volari Federation. The humans were coming, and they came prepared for war. The Volari High Council chamber fell silent as Commander Trell finished presenting his initial report. 12 council members sat around the curved table, their silvery eyes wide with concern. The room's soft blue lighting cast gentle shadows across their faces. "This data cannot be correct," said Elder Miro, the oldest council member. His voice trembled slightly as he spoke. "No species would build ships designed to continue fighting after sustaining fatal damage." "I've verified the scans myself," Trell replied firmly. "The data is accurate." The main display showed detailed images of the human warship, the UES Thunderchild. Officer Nix stood beside the display, ready to explain their findings in greater detail. "With your permission," Nix said, "I will show you the most concerning anomalies we discovered." Elder Lena, head of the council, nodded. "Proceed, officer." Nix touched the control panel, and the display zoomed in on the ship's power systems. First, observe their power grid. Unlike our vessels, which use a single main reactor with one backup, the human ship has its primary reactor here, he pointed to the center of the ship, but also has 3 smaller reactors positioned throughout the vessel. "Perhaps they simply have higher power requirements?" suggested another council member. "That was our initial thought," Nix continued. "But upon further analysis, we discovered each reactor is capable of independently powering essential systems. If the main reactor fails, the ship doesn't just switch to emergency power. It can continue almost all functions using these backup systems." He changed the display to show the ship's life support systems. Their air recycling system has 4 separate units, each able to support the entire crew. Their water purification system is similarly redundant. "This is basic safety," Elder Miro argued. "All ships have backup life support." "Yes," Trell interjected, "but our backups are designed to keep the crew alive until they can reach safety or be rescued. These systems are designed to keep the ship operational for extended periods, even after taking significant damage." Nix nodded and changed the display again. "Now, observe their hull design." The image showed cross-sections of the ship's outer shell. Unlike the smooth, continuous hulls of Volari vessels, The human ship's hull was divided into multiple compartments, each with its own reinforced walls. Their hull is segmented, Nix explained. If one section is breached, automatic doors seal off the damaged area. The ship can lose up to 70% of its internal volume to vacuum and still function. Murmurs of disbelief filled the council chamber. But the most disturbing elements, Nix continued, switching the display to the ship's weapon systems, are these. The council stared at the array of weapons mounted on the human vessel. Missile launchers, energy projectors, and what appeared to be kinetic weapons lined the hull. Each weapon system has dedicated power supplies separate from the main grid. They can continue firing even if the ship loses main power. Some weapons can even be operated manually if electronic systems fail. Manually? Elder Lena asked, her voice barely audible. You mean they would send crew members to physically operate weapons during combat? Yes, Elder, Nix confirmed. And that's not all. We detected training protocols in their computer systems. The humans regularly practice something called damage control drills. They simulate severe damage to the ship and train to fight while parts of their vessel are exposed to vacuum or on fire. The council chamber was utterly silent now. The concept was almost incomprehensible to the Volari, whose entire philosophy centered around preservation of life. Their own military training focused on preventing conflict or retreating when necessary to save lives. There's more, Trell said grimly. Show them the crew quarters, Nix. The display changed to show the interior of the human ship. The living spaces were small and utilitarian, but what caught everyone's attention were the personal weapons stored in each crew member's quarters. Every human on board appears to be armed, Nix explained. Not just the security personnel. Everyone, including medical staff and engineers, they all carry personal weapons and appear to receive combat training. This doesn't make sense, Elder Miro said, shaking his head. A species cannot evolve to be this aggressive and still advance to space travel. They would destroy themselves first. Perhaps that is why they are so prepared, Trell suggested. Our historians are analyzing the fragments of human history we were able to retrieve from their databases. It appears they have indeed fought numerous wars among themselves. They may have developed these defensive capabilities because they expect all other species to be as aggressive as they are. Elder Lena stood up, her tall frame casting a long shadow across the table. We need more information before we decide how to proceed. Commander Trell, continue monitoring the human vessel, but do not make contact. Officer Nix, I want a full analysis of their biological makeup. Perhaps understanding their physical form will help us understand their psychology. As the council meeting ended, Nix and Trell walked together down the curved corridor leading from the chamber. Do you think they're as dangerous as their ship suggests? Nix asked quietly. Trell considered the question carefully. I've studied many species in my career, Nix. Usually technology reflects evolutionary history. A species that builds ships, designed to keep fighting even when mortally wounded, that suggests a history where surrender meant extinction. But why would they arm everyone on board? Even their healers carry weapons. Perhaps, Trell said thoughtfully, on their world, everyone needed to be a warrior at times. Maybe they faced threats we cannot imagine. They reached the lift that would take them back to the observation center. As the doors closed, Trell added, or perhaps they are the threat that other species fear. Back in the observation center, the main screen still showed the UES Thunderchild moving steadily through space. Its course remained unchanged, heading deeper into Volari territory. Begin the biological scan, Trell ordered as they entered. I want to know everything about these humans, their strengths, their weaknesses, and most importantly, what drives them to build ships ready for war. The scanning team began their work, focusing powerful sensors on the human vessel. As data began to stream in, the first images of human bodies appeared on the screens. Nix stared at the readings, his silver eyes growing wider. Commander, he said, his voice barely a whisper, you need to see this. Trell moved quickly to Nix's side. What he saw made his blood run cold. The human biology was unlike anything they had encountered before, a combination of fragility and Incredible resilience that made no evolutionary sense. How can a species be this contradictory? Trell murmured. The mystery of the humans only deepened, and with it, the Valari's fear of what first contact might bring. Impossible, whispered Medical Officer Vara as she studied the biological scan results. Her delicate blue fingers moved rapidly over the control panel, recalibrating the sensors. These readings cannot be correct. Commander Trell and Officer Nick stood behind her in the medical analysis lab. The room hummed with the soft sounds of advanced equipment. Large screens displayed detailed images of human anatomy, skeletal structures, organ systems, cellular compositions. Run the scan again, Trell ordered, his voice tight with tension. Vara nodded and reset the system. Minutes later, the same results appeared on the screen. The data is accurate, Commander, she confirmed, her silver eyes wide with disbelief. These humans are remarkable. Explain, Trell demanded. Vara touched the screen, highlighting the human skeletal system. First, observe their bones. They're made of living tissue that constantly rebuilds itself. If damaged, they can heal completely over time. Many species have regenerative capabilities, Nix pointed out. Yes, but look at this, Vara continued, zooming in on a cellular image. Their blood contains specialized cells that rush to wounds, forming clots to stop bleeding. They have an immune system that adapts to new threats, remembering pathogens it has encountered before. She switched to another image, showing a human heart. Their cardiovascular system is designed for both endurance and sudden bursts of extreme activity. They can maintain slow, steady exertion for days or switch to intense output in seconds. A predator adaptation, Trell noted grimly. Yes, but also prey, Vara replied, surprising them both. These biological systems suggest a species that evolved as both hunter and hunted. They can chase prey to exhaustion, but they can also flee from threats over long distances. Nix frowned, trying to understand. How can a species evolve as both? I don't know, Vara admitted. It's contradictory, but there's more. She brought up an image of the human digestive system. They can eat almost anything. Their digestive tract can process a wide variety of foods, both plant and animal. They can survive on diverse diets, adapting to whatever nutrition is available. A survival advantage, Trell observed. Exactly. And look at this, Vara said, displaying thermal images of human bodies. They regulate body temperature internally. They can survive in freezing environments by generating heat, and in hot environments by cooling themselves through a process called sweating. Nix shook his head in amazement. So they can live almost anywhere? Within limits, yes. Far wider limits than most species we've encountered, Vara confirmed. But perhaps most disturbing is this. She pulled up images of the human nervous system and brain. Their pain response. What about it? Trell asked. It can be overridden, Vara explained. When these humans experience extreme stress or danger, their bodies release chemicals that can temporarily block pain signals. They can continue functioning despite injuries that would incapacitate most species. A heavy silence fell over the room as the three Valari considered the implications. Their own species had evolved on a peaceful world with few predators. Pain was an important warning signal that prevented further injury. The idea of continuing to function while injured seemed unnatural, even dangerous. But the most fascinating aspect, Vara continued, is their adaptability. Look at their muscle structure. The screen showed human muscle tissue at a cellular level. Their muscles grow stronger when regularly stressed. Their bones become denser when subjected to repeated impact. Their lungs increase capacity when trained at high altitudes. They improve with hardship? Nix asked incredulously. Yes. Their bodies actually adapt to difficult conditions by becoming stronger, Vara confirmed. It's as if they were designed to overcome challenges. Trell paced the room, his mind racing. A species that grows stronger when faced with adversity. That explains so much about their ship design. There's one more thing, Vara said quietly. She pulled up images from the ship's medical bay. We accessed their medical records. These humans have survived injuries that would be fatal to us. Look. The screen showed medical reports with accompanying images. Humans who had lost limbs, survived penetrating wounds to vital organs, endured massive blood loss, or recovered from severe burns. "They can live through this?" Nix asked, his voice barely audible. "Not only live, but often return to full duty," Vera said. "Their medical technology is not as advanced as ours in many ways, but their body's natural healing abilities are extraordinary." Trell stared at the images, a new understanding dawning. "They don't build ships ready for war because they want to fight," he said slowly. "They build them because they expect to be hurt, and they know they can survive." "Commander," a voice called from the communication system, "we've completed analysis of the human historical records we retrieved. Display them here," Trell ordered. The screens changed to show images from Earth's history. The Volari watched in silence as scenes of human conflict through the ages appeared before them. Ancient battles with primitive weapons, world wars, with mechanized destruction, and finally, the conflicts that preceded their venture into space. "So much fighting," Nix whispered. "How did they not destroy themselves?" "Because they always adapted," Trell realized. Each conflict taught them to build better defenses, more efficient weapons, and more resilient societies. "What do we do, Commander?" Vora asked. "The High Council is waiting for our recommendation." Trell considered for a long moment. The decision before them was momentous. First contact with a species unlike any they had encountered before. "We have 3 options," he finally said. "We can retreat and avoid contact entirely. We can approach diplomatically and hope their intentions are peaceful. Or we can prepare for conflict, assuming they are as aggressive as their biology and history suggest." "The Council will be divided," Nix noted. "Elder Miro will argue for retreat while others will push for diplomatic contact." "Perhaps there is a 4th option," said a quiet voice from the doorway. They turned to see Junior Officer Lex, who had been monitoring the human ship's communications. "Speak, Junior Officer," Trell encouraged. "What if we observe them more closely before deciding?" Lex suggested. "We have stealth technology they cannot detect. We could learn more about their behavior, see how they interact among themselves when they don't know they're being watched." Trell considered the idea. It was cautious yet practical, gathering more information before making such a critical decision. "Prepare a stealth observation drone," he ordered. "We'll get closer to the human ship and see these creatures in their natural habitat. Perhaps then we'll understand whether they come as friends or conquerors." As the others hurried to follow his orders, Trell remained in the lab staring at the images of human biology. A species shaped by conflict, strengthened by adversity, capable of surviving terrible injuries, and now traveling among the stars. "What are you?" he whispered to the image of a human on the screen. "And what will you do when you find us?" The stealth drone glided silently through the vacuum of space, its advanced cloaking technology making it invisible to conventional sensors. It approached the UES Thunderchild carefully, maintaining a safe distance while its powerful observation equipment focused on the human vessel. Inside the Volari command ship, Commander Trell, Officer Nix, and Junior Officer Lex watched the live feed from the drone. The main screen showed the exterior of the human warship in stunning detail. "Magnify Section 3, Trell ordered. "There's movement." The image zoomed in on a portion of the hull where a large airlock door was sliding open. 2 small figures emerged, connected to the ship by thin tethers. "They're going outside their vessel," Nick said, his voice filled with wonder. "In space." The humans wore bulky white suits that protected them from the vacuum. They moved with practiced ease, using small propulsion units attached to their backs to maneuver around the hull. "What are they doing?" Lex asked. As they watched, one human anchored itself to the hull while the other began working on what appeared to be a weapon system. "They're performing maintenance," Trell realized, "on their weapons, while in space." "That's incredibly dangerous," Nix commented. "Why, not do this work inside where it's safe?" "Perhaps they can't," Lex suggested, "or perhaps this is faster." The humans worked methodically, replacing components and adjusting settings. After about an hour, they returned to the airlock and disappeared inside the ship. "Switch to internal observation," Trell commanded. The drone's sensors adjusted, using specialized technology to peer through the hull of the ship. The image quality wasn't perfect, but it was clear enough to see what was happening inside. The view showed a large room where about 20 humans were gathered. Some stood in a circle, while others sat on the floor. 2 humans in the center appeared to be fighting. "Are they having a conflict?" Nix asked, alarmed. "A mutiny?" Lex, who had been studying human behavior patterns from their historical records, shook her head. "I don't think so. Look at the others. They're not intervening. This appears to be training." Indeed, the humans watching were calling out encouragement to the 2 in the center. After one human pinned the other to the floor, they both stood up, shook hands, and 2 different humans took their place. "They practice combat among themselves," Trell noted. "Even on a peaceful mission." The observation continued for hours as the drone moved around the ship, its sensors capturing different aspects of human life aboard the Thunderchild. They saw humans eating together in a communal area, working at various stations, and even engaging in recreational activities. Despite the military nature of their vessel, the humans seemed to laugh often. "They're very social," Nix observed. "They touch each other frequently, clasping hands, patting shoulders." "A bonding behavior," Lex explained. "Their historical records suggest humans form strong group loyalties." Suddenly, the drone's feed picked up a new activity that made all 3 Volari freeze in shock. A group of humans had entered a large chamber wearing only minimal clothing. The chamber appeared to be depressurizing. "What are they doing?" Nix gasped. "They'll die." The humans put on simple masks connected to small air tanks, but left the rest of their bodies exposed. As the chamber fully depressurized, simulating the vacuum of space, the humans began moving around, communicating through hand signals. "They're training to survive in vacuum," Trell realized, his voice barely a whisper. "With minimal protection." "How is this possible?" Nix asked. "No species can survive vacuum exposure. Remember their biology," Lex reminded them. "Their bodies can endure extreme conditions for short periods. They're deliberately exposing themselves to vacuum to prepare for emergency situations." The training session lasted only minutes before the chamber repressurized, but it left the Volari observers deeply disturbed. What kind of species would willingly expose themselves to such danger as a routine exercise? The drone continued its observation, moving to what appeared to be the command center of the ship. Captain Reynolds, a tall human with short gray hair, stood looking at a display screen with several officers around him. "The sensors are picking up some unusual readings at coordinates 227 Mark 43, one officer was saying. "Could be a sensor glitch, but it's been consistent for the past 3 hours." Captain Reynolds frowned. "That's the 3rd glitch in that sector. Too consistent to be random. Tactical, run a full sweep with the secondary array." Trell's hearts raced. "They've detected something. Pull the drone back immediately." "It can't be the drone," Nix argued. "Our cloaking technology is perfect." "Apparently not perfect enough," Trell replied. "Move it back now." The drone began to retreat, but it was too late. On the screen, they saw Captain Reynolds stiffen suddenly. "Contact," shouted the tactical officer. "Something just changed position at high speed, definitely not a natural phenomenon." "Red alert," Reynolds ordered calmly. "Shields up. Weapons on standby only. Do not target yet." Alarms blared throughout the human ship as crew members rushed to their stations. The efficiency of their response was impressive. Within seconds, the entire vessel had transformed from routine operation to combat readiness. "They know we're watching them," Trell said grimly. "Recall the drone. There's no point in maintaining the pretense." Back on the Volari command ship, the High Council had assembled for an emergency meeting. They watched the recorded observations in silence, their expressions growing more concerned with each passing minute. "These humans are more dangerous than we imagined," Elder Miro said. "They train for combat in vacuum. They deliberately expose themselves to lethal conditions. We should withdraw from this region immediately." "But they haven't shown any aggressive intent," Elder Lena pointed out. "Their weapons remain on standby." They detected our drone but didn't attempt to destroy it. Before the debate could continue, Officer Nix rushed into the chamber. Commanders, the human ship is broadcasting a message, on all frequencies in over 50 different language patterns. Let us hear it, Elder Lena ordered. The message played through the council chamber's speakers. The voice was calm, measured, and unmistakably that of Captain Reynolds. Unknown vessel, this is Captain James Reynolds of the United Earth ship Thunderchild. We know you're there. We've detected your observation devices. We come in peace and seek diplomatic contact with new civilizations. But be advised, we are prepared for otherwise. Please respond within 1 standard hour, or we will be forced to take more direct action to establish communication. A heavy silence fell over the council chamber. The humans knew they were being watched, and now they were demanding a response. What do we do? Elder Miro asked, his voice trembling slightly. Commander Trell stepped forward. We have no choice. We must answer. The humans have found us, and they're not going away. The neutral meeting point was a small uninhabited moon orbiting a gas giant. Its barren rocky surface offered no strategic advantages to either species. 2 ships hovered in orbit above it, the human vessel Thunderchild and the Volari diplomatic cruiser Harmony. On the moon's surface, a temporary structure had been erected. Half was built by humans, half by Volari, with an airlock connecting the 2 sides. The atmosphere inside was a careful mixture that both species could breathe, though neither found it entirely comfortable. Commander Trell stood at the entrance to the Volari section, his heart beating rapidly. Beside him, Elder Lena adjusted her ceremonial robes one final time. Remember, she said quietly, our goal is peaceful first contact. Do not react to any aggressive displays. They may simply be their way of communication. Trell nodded. The diplomatic team is ready. Officer, Nix has prepared translation devices calibrated to their language patterns. And the security measures? Elder Lena asked. In place but concealed, Trell confirmed. As agreed, no visible weapons. The airlock indicator light changed from red to green. The humans were ready. As the door slid open, Trell braced himself for what might come through. Despite all their preparations, despite hours of watching the humans through observation drones, he still felt a primal fear at the thought of standing face to face with these warrior beings. Captain Reynolds entered first. He was taller than Trell had expected, with broad shoulders and a straight posture that radiated authority. Behind him came 3 other humans, a woman with dark skin who appeared to be a science officer, a younger man carrying what looked like communication equipment, and an older man whose function Trell couldn't immediately determine. What struck Trell most was how ordinary they looked. After seeing their ship's capabilities and their training exercises, he had almost expected monsters. Instead, these were simply bipedal beings with expressions that, while alien, seemed recognizably concerned and cautious. Greetings, Elder Lena said, the translation device converting her melodic language into English. I am Elder Lena of the Volari Federation. We welcome you to our territory and hope for peaceful relations between our peoples. Captain Reynolds stepped forward and made a gesture with his right hand, palm flat, raised to shoulder level, the O. Volari had studied this gesture from their observations and knew it was a peaceful greeting, not a threat display. Elder Lena, Commander Trell, Reynolds said, surprising them by using their names and ranks. I am Captain James Reynolds of the United Earth ship Thunderchild. We come seeking peaceful contact and exchange of knowledge. Elder Lena gestured toward the meeting table. Please, join us. The humans and Volari took their seats opposite each other. For a moment, silence filled the room as each group studied the other. I believe, Reynolds finally said, we should address the fact that you have been observing our ship for the past week. Trell felt a flutter of alarm. Had their surveillance been that obvious? Yes, Elder Lena admitted. We detected your vessel entering our space and sought to understand your intentions before making contact. Reynolds nodded. A reasonable precaution. However, I must express concern about the methods used. Covert surveillance can be interpreted as hostile intent, as can arriving in another species' territory with a heavily armed warship, Trell responded, unable to contain himself. Instead of anger, Reynolds' face showed what appeared to be understanding. Fair point, Commander. From your perspective, we must appear threatening. Your ship, Trell said carefully, is designed for combat beyond what seems necessary for exploration. It suggests you expected violence. Reynolds exchanged glances with his officers before responding. Commander Trell, humanity has learned harsh lessons throughout our history. We've found that being prepared for conflict often prevents it from occurring. Your biology, said the human woman, stepping into the conversation, suggests your species evolved in a relatively peaceful environment. Is that correct? Elder Lena looked surprised by the question. Yes, our homeworld had few large predators and abundant resources. How did you determine this? Your physical characteristics, the woman explained. Limited muscle mass, no natural, weapons like claws or fangs, large eyes suggesting diurnal activity rather than hunting or hiding in darkness. Science Officer Lisa Park, she added, introducing herself with a slight nod. Humans evolved differently, Reynolds continued. Our planet was filled with dangers, predators, natural disasters, competing hominid species. We survived through adaptation and cooperation. And warfare, Trell added. Reynolds didn't deny it. Yes, our tribes and later our nations fought each other. But we also built together, created art and music, explored our world, and eventually the stars. Your ship, Trell said, still troubled by what they had discovered, is designed to continue fighting even when severely damaged. Your crew trains to survive in vacuum. These are not the actions of a peaceful species. For the first time, Reynolds smiled. It was a strange expression to the Volari, who communicated emotions differently, but they recognized it wasn't threatening. Commander, have you heard the humans saying, hope for peace, prepare for war? Trell shook his head. We build our ships to withstand damage not because we want to fight, but because space itself is dangerous. Micrometeorites, radiation, equipment failures, all can kill just as surely as an enemy weapon. We train in vacuum not because we expect to fight there, but because accidents happen and we want our crew to survive them. The older human man spoke up. Your scans of our ship would have shown our agricultural bay, our scientific laboratories, our library of cultural works. Did these suggest a species bent on conquest? Trell hesitated. It was true. Their observations had revealed those aspects of the human vessel as well. But the Volari had focused on the weapons and defenses because they seemed more significant. We saw those, Elder Lena acknowledged. But we also saw weapons, drills, combat training, and redundant systems designed for battle damage. Preparedness is not aggression, Reynolds said firmly. We design our ships to survive because we value life, especially in an environment as hostile as space. A moment of silence fell as the Volari considered this perspective. Perhaps, Elder Lena finally said, we have misunderstood each other. Our fear of your capabilities led us to attribute hostile intent where none existed. And perhaps, Reynolds replied, we should have approached more cautiously, understanding how our ship might appear to a species with a different evolutionary history. The tension in the room eased slightly. Trell found himself studying Captain Reynolds with new eyes. There was strength there, certainly, but also wisdom and restraint. Captain Reynolds, Elder Lena said, the Volari Federation would like to establish formal diplomatic relations with Earth. We have much to learn from each other. Reynolds smiled again, broader this time. The United Earth government would be honored, Elder Lena. This is why we journey among the stars, to find new friends, not new enemies. As the meeting continued, with both sides discussing the details of future diplomatic exchanges, Trell leaned toward Officer Nix. What do you think? He asked quietly. Can we trust them? Nix considered for a moment. They're different from us, shaped by a harsher world. But I believe Captain Reynolds speaks truthfully. They don't seek war. Trell watched as humans and Volari began to relax around each other, the initial fear giving way to curiosity. I hope you're right, he said. Because if humans ever did decide to wage war. He left the thought unfinished, but both knew what he meant. The species that had built the Thunder Child, that trained to fight in vacuum, that could endure injuries, that would kill a Volari. Such beings would be formidable enemies indeed. As if reading his thoughts, Captain Reynolds looked up and met Trell's gaze across the table. "Commander," Reynolds said, "I hope that one day you'll visit our ship as a guest, not an observer. Perhaps then you'll see that what you feared was simply our way of surviving in a dangerous universe." Trell nodded slowly. "I would like that, Captain." And he found, somewhat to his surprise, that he meant it.